2, 1. What is up, y'all? This is the Raw Prospect Podcast. Emmy Nixon, Michael Ween. Today it's December 14th. We're live from Austin, Texas. We got a special guest on the phone with me right now. I got the one and only Chiseled Adonis. We'd let you introduce
yourself.
Thanks
for having me. I appreciate being invited onto the podcast. If you didn't know before, get familiar. I am the diligent, vigilant, meticulous, sagacious, conscientious, analytical, methodical individual, the Chiseled Adonis. How you guys doing, man?
We're doing great. We're doing great.
Doing just fine.
I can't wait to talk some football, man. We're gonna discuss the NFL playoff race. I've got some Cowboys talk that I need to discuss, and then y'all can discuss the Steelers a little bit. I'm sure y'all got a big game coming up tomorrow night, so let's get right into it. As it stands right now, we'll start with the AFC.
Okay.
As it stands right now,
Baltimore is 12-2, sitting in the one spot. They already clinched the AFC North with the win over the Jets on Thursday. The Patriots are in the second seed at 10-3. The Chiefs are sneaking up on the Patriots in the 3 seed at 9-4, with the Texans behind them at 8-5. I have an interesting take on the AFC South coming up in a little bit. The Bills right now are sitting in the 5th seed at 9-4, and they travel to Pittsburgh to play the Steelers tomorrow night on Sunday Night Football, who sit at 8-5, and who would take over the 5th seed if they beat the Bills. So that's the rundown of the AFC playoff picture.
Yeah. That game tomorrow night for the AFC South, that's going to be huge. Texans, Titans. The Titans, to me, they're a great example of a team that just has an identity. They run the football and they play defense. That's their game. And then when they need to, they can look to Ryan Tannehill to convert on the short third down opportunities. And that's how they play. They run the football as well as anybody in the league with Derrick Henry.
Yeah, I think Henry right now is top 3 in rushing. And the great thing about Tennessee, as you said, they run the football well and they play good defense. And more importantly, Tannehill, they're not afraid to have Tannehill win the game with his arm. He's not killing them with interceptions. He's not turning the football over at a high rate. They're playing very balanced football. And in my opinion, I think they can win that AFC South, because you just saw a Texans team get destroyed by the lowly Broncos in a game that nobody saw coming off of 2 back-to-back big wins. You beat Indianapolis to take sole possession of number 1 in your division, then took down New England only to lay down an egg. But we've seen Tennessee surge since Tannehill has taken over as the starter. So they're definitely a very solid team. And in my opinion, I think they're a lock for the playoffs, whether it's a wild card or they win the division. I think they're going to the postseason.
Yeah, for sure. I think I would not want to play Tennessee in the playoffs. They're one of the hottest teams in the league.
Yeah, y'all mentioned Tannehill. I mean, 15 touchdowns, 5 interceptions with a 118 quarterback rating since he's taken over as quarterback. And they've scored no less than 23 points in any single game in the 8 games he's played. Before he took over, they were averaging 16 points per game, 5th worst in the league. Now they're averaging 31.4 points per game, 2nd best in the league. So, I mean, I personally think watching Houston play and watching Tennessee play, they're going in 2 different directions right now. I don't think Houston is consistent enough to even probably make the playoffs. I think Tennessee's the much better football team. They're much better fit for the cold weather games that you have to play in the playoffs when it comes January football and it's cold outside. They can run the football with Henry. Tannehill's not going to kill you in those situations. And their defense has been a top 10 defense for, pretty much
they've been consistent
the
last 4 years, really. From the Texans' perspective, I think they rely on Watson way too much to be able to create outside of the pocket because of their lack of an O-line. I'm looking for this defense to step up this game because they're going to need them. big time this game. They're not gonna. They have a chance of getting blown out of the off the field if they don't come to play. So that'll be really interesting to see.
And it's in Tennessee, so that's where the scariest part for Houston is, because you've got to go on the road to play somewhere where those fans, when they get going and they're cheering Henry all day, Derrick Henry takes care of business. And more importantly, when you look at that, Tennessee offense, they're doing all of this with Delaney Walker, who is their best receiver. Although he played at tight end, he was really their best ball catcher. And he's on IR. So imagine if he was there and they were firing all cylinders. So they're playing a very good brand of football right now. And I'm ecstatic to see how this game plays out. But I definitely do foresee Tennessee winning this football game.
Yeah.
I do too. I mean, as much as I don't want them to, because they're right on Pittsburgh's tail. Well, I guess that might not matter if they end up winning the division. But since it's at home, the Texans, since they lost J.J. Watt, ranked 27th in pass defense. So I think Tannehill's going to eat them up. A.J. Brown's been fantastic the past couple weeks. Houston doesn't really have a shutdown corner anymore. Their secondary is not very good. Well, I guess they have one consistent corner, Bradley Roby. He's been like their one pretty good cornerback the past couple weeks. And I just don't think – I'm not really sure about Bill O'Brien. I think he's a good coach, but, you can't beat the Patriots one week and then come out – was that game at home? No.
Oh, at home.
It was at home. You can't beat the Patriots one week.
3 consecutive home games.
And then get outcoached and outplayed completely by a Vic Fangio Denver Broncos football team who's been competitive, but that was Drew Lock making his second start.
Yeah.
And he looked like a Pro Bowler in that game. So
ridiculous.
I think Tannehill's going to eat him up. I foresee Derrick Henry having another 100-yard, 120-yard rushing game with 2 or 3 touchdowns. I think Houston's in big trouble. Big trouble.
I agree 100%.
All right. Seems like we've hit everything there. Let's talk about y'all Steelers game. You got is that Sunday Night Football?
It is Sunday Night
Football. Sunday Night Football.
At home against the Bills. What do y'all think?
You can start.
I'll say it is going to be an extremely tough game because you've got 2 of the top 5 defenses in the NFL doing battle. But more importantly, you've got an extremely mobile quarterback in Josh Allen. Everybody's talking about Lamar Jackson because he's over 1,000, just broke Vic's record. Well, realistically, if Josh Allen were to go out there and run for 75 yards for the last 3 remaining games, he's over 1,000 too, I believe. So from where we sit, it's going to be a very tough game defensively for Pittsburgh to be able to corral that rushing attack of Buffalo, because I believe they're still top 5, if not they're probably number 2 when it comes to rushing the football thus far this season, only behind Baltimore, I think. Devin Singletary ran for 89 yards last week against Baltimore. Who's to say he can't come out and do the same against Pittsburgh? And again, we've just covered with Josh Allen. Then you have John Brown, who's been playing very good thus far this season. He's extremely underrated when we talk about his production thus far. And that Buffalo defense, that secondary is very good. They can stop the run. So who knows where things will go. For Pittsburgh, they've just got to be able to get to Josh Allen. They lead the league in sacks. They lead the league in takeaways. They've just got to keep that momentum. And offensively, Juju Smith-Schuster, they thought he was coming back, but turns out he's not going to be able to play, but James Conner will be back. But are we going to see a lot of carries going to Conner, or is it going to continue to be running back by committee? Pittsburgh just has to make sure they protect Devlin Hodges, take the football out of the hands of Buffalo, win the time of possession battle, and ultimately shut down that run.
I agree. You mentioned it. This defense leads the NFL in sacks with 48. Not to mention, 35 of those 48 sacks have come when playing at Heinz Field. So they've been better. rushing the quarterback when at Heinz Field. They lead the league in turnovers with 33, which is incredible considering what they did last year. Since acquiring Minka Fitzpatrick, they lead the NFL in points per game allowed, yards per game allowed, sacks, interceptions, and their second in opponent quarterback rating. So he's totally changed the defense. Devin Bush has been fantastic. Second among rookies in tackles with 88. Leads Pittsburgh in tackles. Been an excellent replacement for Ryan Shazier. And then Joe Hayden and Minka Fitzpatrick, and even Steven Nelson. I mean, when they throw Steven Nelson's way, it's been shut down island out there.
Yeah.
For Duck Hodges, I just think he needs to do what he's been doing. Don't give the ball away. Don't kill us like Rudolph was. Make the easy throws. Get Deontay Johnson the ball. He's been like the breakout player. Right. And then when you have to, use Jalen Samuels in the passing game and use James Conner in the rushing game and control time of possession.
Yeah. I think when it comes down to it, I like the matchup of the Steelers D-line on the Bills O-line because we saw last week the Ravens were able to get pressure consistently on Josh Allen. And also, if it comes down to it, I like the idea of having Bush spy Allen if he decides to break out of the pocket as he tends to do. I like that matchup. But I think ultimately this game will be really close, probably low scoring, maybe low 20s, high teens, somewhere in there. Might come down to a field goal.
The over-under is crazy low. It's like 36.5. It's crazy low.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. I don't think it's gonna get into the 20s. I'm right there with you. I think it's probably gonna be high teens sort of situation. I'm happy you mentioned Devin Bush, probably spying Josh Allen. But my only concern will be what will be the percentage of snaps that he's on the field. Because after, I think, midway through the season, he started to have a little bit of a decline with the amount of times that he was on the field. Now, Vince Williams, he had gotten hurt. And then when he came back from injury, he's seen an increase in snaps. And then they've slowly been trying to, continually make a ton of rotations. So hopefully when they step out there, Devin Bush will be on the field because he's got those young, fresh legs. He can chase down, Josh Allen. So I'm just curious how Tomlin will be playing those linebackers because we don't have to worry about Bud Dupree or TJ Watt. They're going to be getting after the quarterback all day long. But those middle interior linebackers, who's going to be on the field, more often? I can expect in run situations you're going to have Vince Williams out there. Passing situations or second and long, third and long, maybe have Devin Bush out there. So I'm curious to see how that all plays out.
Yeah, and you mentioned Devin Bush. Mark Barron's also been a key piece. They picked him up from the Rams in free agency during the offseason. He's been utilized in a lot of different situations and has been pretty good when Bush and Williams aren't on the field. So he'll be an X factor for sure. And I think what was I going to say? It just left my head, but continue. It'll come back to me.
Y'all got score predictions? I'm thinking 20-17.
Is this one of those
Steelers
games where it comes down to Boswell?
Yeah, I think so.
That's what it feels like.
20-17 is a good one. Maybe 17. Maybe 17-14. 17-13 sort of situation. I think this game will be won in the either the second to last or the last drive. I think it's going to be one of those games that it feels as if it's a nail biter all the way through. Because I do feel as if Pittsburgh will jump out to an early lead and then Buffalo will come back and make things interesting. So probably I think maybe about 17-14.
Yeah, I think it's going to be like 20-14, 20-17, somewhere in that range.
Okay. Yeah. So we're all on the same.
Yeah.
Are we all picking the Steelers?
I can't pick against the Steelers. It's just too good to be true, I think. I don't know.
I feel like since this is Josh Allen's first time under the bright lights Sunday night, I feel like the more reliable pick may be the Steelers, even though the Bills may have the advantage with their defense slightly.
I mean, both defenses are great. It's going to come down to which quarterback makes more of the plays in the fourth quarter, in my mind. And I think if it comes down to Boswell, I
feel like you can count on Boswell.
I think you can count on Boswell this year. He's been a lot better than he was last year.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think he's only missed maybe 2 or 3 kicks all year. And I'm rolling with the Steelers to win this game, too. And I'm so happy that you brought up the fact that, they had 30-plus sacks of their 48, I believe, were all they're at home.
Yeah.
So when those guys get going at home, it is tough to block them. And under duress, we saw it last week, with Josh Allen constantly having to run around. Who's to say? And there's a very opportunistic defense with Pittsburgh. They don't lead the league in takeaways for no reason. So the turnover battle is what will determine, who wins this game. I think Pittsburgh, they 8 of the last 10 games, they proved they could go out there and take the football away. And I believe 11 games, they've had 2+ takeaways. Yeah. So I'm going with Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I agree. Real quick, Mike Tomlin, Coach of the Year.
Oh yeah. I'm looking at John Harbaugh. I'm looking at Kyle Shanahan. But for what Mike Tomlin has had to deal with, knowing from the offseason, moving until this point, you're playing out there with guys who were on the practice squad. Yeah. Devlin Hodges was the 4th-string quarterback coming out of training camp. You've got a running back by committee. You had your Pro Bowl and James Conner. He's missed a ton of games. You had Juju Smith-Schuster. He was your Pro Bowler. He's missed a ton of games. Marquise Pouncey, he only got suspended for 2 games, but still you were able to go out there and get W's without your starting center. It's just a revolving door offensively. Your most tenured receiver outside of Juju is James Washington, and he's his 2nd year playing. So what Mike Tomlin has been able to do, by far, I think he's the coach of the year.
Yeah. I feel like it's a two-horse race with him and Kyle Shanahan in San Francisco for Coach of the Year.
I agree, but if this Pittsburgh team wins, I might be being biased, but if they win 10 games, which I think they can do, I think they can win 2 of their last 3, maybe all 3 of their last 3 games.
I think that'll make him a lock.
Yeah, if they get that wild card berth and they have double-digit wins. Of all seasons, right? He's never had a losing season. Of all seasons, this was supposed to be the one. Once Ben went down and all the injuries started to pile up, this was supposed to be the one. After they started 0-3, that he might have a losing season. But now he's secure at least a 500 season at 8-5. So I don't see anyhow Mike Tomlin doesn't win it. But you make a good case with Shanahan, and Harbaugh's been fantastic with what he's done with Lamar Jackson. So we'll just have to see what happens.
All right.
Let's talk about the Cowboys.
Okay, yeah. Wow, that was smooth. Talking about the best head coaches to talking about maybe the worst head coach in the league. Okay. All right. I prepared the 2 top reasons that we need to fire Jason Garrett right now, not at the end of the season, right now. Okay. Reason number 1, firing him now might save the locker room. Right now, you're seeing all this blame being thrown on Dak Prescott and all the stars on the team. Zeke, Smith, all those guys are getting way too much blame and then that'll put so much pressure on a locker room, and they'll just tear it apart from the inside. Reason number 2 is just we deserve to know as fans what this team is capable of. Right now, we believe it's a coaching issue, but we have 3 games left, and if we go 0-3, then maybe it's not a coaching issue, and maybe we need to make changes. So if that ends up being the problem, like the changes that may need to be made, maybe with trading Tyron Smith, I've seen the drop off in the amount of games played over the years. He's starting to decline, and right now we have $30 million per year invested into our line. The identity of this team is fractured right now, and also the identity of this team, which was running the football and playing defense, it's not where it needs to be. And that might be because of coaching, and it might be because the players just aren't up to par. Simple as that. So I think if we trade Tyron Smith, get draft picks, maybe start over a little bit, tag Prescott, because I do not want to pay him the big money yet, and see what happens from there. I feel like if we get a new breed of young talent in on this offensive line, we'll revitalize what made us good in prior seasons.
So, I think it's pretty much a done deal. They're firing Jason Garrett after the season. So I might be putting you on the spot, but where do you go? Where do you look for the next head coach? Do you go to the college ranks?
For me personally, I would love to see Ron Rivera coach this team. I've heard rumors that the Giants are looking at Ron Rivera if they do fire Pat Shurmur, but it'd be him or the offensive coordinator for the Chiefs. I think he would be a good fit with Dak. The Chiefs offense, I think they have motion on like 45% of their plays or something like that. That's third in the NFL, I'm pretty sure. So I think the creativity that he could implement in this offense could really help Dak improve and be more consistent.
Yeah, I'd say you have to, for one. Luckily for them, I agree with you. Fire Garrett now rather than waiting until the end of the season, because although they don't have to renew him, I'm pretty sure his contract expires as week 17 is over. So most likely what Jerry Jones will do is not fire him and just let him finish the season, then let him walk. But as you said, firing him now can save that locker room. What's the purpose of keeping this guy around if you know he's just not cut out for the job? As for who would take over for him, I definitely agree with a Ron Rivera. I think that's somebody who definitely got to get in the locker room because he's an attitude kind of guy. He's not somebody who just walks in and can't get the locker room on his side. The first thing he's going to address is the cancers in the locker room, get the knuckleheads out of there, get people's, their mindset right and set on the prize. They have other coaches who you can. Now, I wouldn't hire anybody in-house because they all just seem to be maniacal yes men for Jerry Jones. You got to get somebody who's got some personality and a backbone from the outside. So, hell, you can even call somebody like a Jack Del Rio. I don't think it'd be a perfect fit, but he's got the right attitude.
Right.
I wouldn't call him Mike McCarthy, but most likely I'd have to say target Ron Rivera. And ultimately, like you said, another problem with the Cowboys is they don't have an identity. Every single week, it seems as if they're playing a different brand of offense. Right. One week, they're heavy on Zeke. The next, he's only getting about 12 carries. One week, they've got Dak, dropping back, doing 5-step drops, 3-step drops. Then the next, he's throwing the ball a bunch of screens left and right. One game, Amari Cooper's getting 10 targets. The next, he's only getting 4. So what sort of team are you trying to be? And defensively, they still do, in my opinion, have probably the best linebacking core when all healthy. But unfortunately, that offense isn't giving you anything to work with, and the defense is on the field way too long. Right. So they've just got to figure out what sort of team they want to be. And until they do that, they're going to continue to spiral down like they've been doing thus far this season. Losers of, I think, losers of 7 of their last 10 games.
Right. Yeah.
So why don't we make predictions? Rams, Cowboys. You go first.
Well, I think this game will be the wake-up call. Well, the final wake-up call. We've already had like the whole season as a wake-up call, but this will be the real wake-up call. I think we're gonna get blown out by 30. Personally, and also I'm not one of those Cowboys fans that have switched up throughout the season. Like, you can go back and watch our predictions podcast. I was pessimistic about this team. Like, I saw that our identity wasn't like to finish the season getting embarrassed by the Rams in the playoffs the way we did. Well, it wasn't embarrassed, but them exposing our strengths is a better way to put it. The way that they did, I think it really put a dent in my confidence in this team. And I just think, like, I predicted them to go 10-6, but I think most of what has gone wrong, what I predicted to go wrong, has been wrong 10 times more.
Yeah.
Yeah, I initially had predicted there would be around I said 9-7 or maybe 8-8 would win the division since about week 2, because I felt as if the entire NFC East, with the Eagles, they had issues with injury and also just poor play collectively as a team. And with Dallas, as we just touched on, they don't know what sort of team they want to be. So I'd say against the Rams, I don't think they'll get blown out by 30. I think Dallas will go down the field as they've done recent. I think maybe the last 3 weeks, they'll go down the field, they'll score on their opening drive and then disappear. Right. So I think they'll probably lose. It'll still be a 3-touchdown spread. I think maybe they lose by a 20 or maybe 21. I think it'll be interesting in the first half. And then in the second, Dallas just will not come out of the locker room. Right. If Todd Gurley can get over 100 yards, this game is over.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think this is one of those games where you're going to look at the scoreboard at the end of the game and you're going to be like, wait, they only lost by 17. How that happened?
Yeah.
But, it feels like you lost by 30 plus.
Yeah.
I think I'm predicting like 38-21, something around there, like a 14 to 17 point defeat. I just think in order for the Cowboys to win, they're going to need to play their best game on offense, their best game on defense, and their best game on special teams. And I know it sounds cliche, but to this point, they haven't played well in all 3 phases in the game this year.
Yeah.
Aside from maybe like when they played the Dolphins or those teams at the beginning of the season. So I just think, I believe in the month of November, Jared Goff didn't throw a touchdown pass, not one single touchdown pass. And in the past couple of weeks, and this speaks to the genius of Sean McVay, the Rams look like a totally different team. I mean, they beat a really, really, really good Pete Carroll coach Seattle team, and they pushed them around. Like, it wasn't very close.
Yeah.
So I just think, I kind of agree with both of you. I think Dallas will start fast, and then, it's just,
it was all a game.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Because, and I'm so happy you brought that up about Seattle last week, because I didn't see that coming.
I didn't either.
I knew the Rams would be a desperate football team, but the way that they played, they owned that entire game. Yeah. Outside of the 2 INTs from Jared Goff to Quandre Diggs, outside of that, Seattle never seemed as if they had control. Once Rashad Penny tore his ACL, it appeared that they just started to panic, and that was the opening or one of the 2 opening drives of the game. So for the Rams, if their offense can get going with the play action, and if Jared Goff, I think he's been lethal thus far. What we've seen the past 2 weeks with Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp, even Tyler Higbee, their matchup problem are starting to showcase against that second, or I should say all of the secondaries that they played thus far. Granted, it was only the Cardinals and Seattle, but going against this Cowboys front, I'm curious to see how the Byron Jones or the Xavier Woods, all these other guys are able to guard these smaller receivers of the Rams who can play outside and also inside as well. And then on the other side of the ball, I think the X factor for Dallas is Amari Cooper. If he cannot beat Jalen Ramsey, you're going to have a problem because they're going to stack the box to take away Zeke. The receivers have to win their one-on-one matchups. You saw Stephon Gilmore take Amari Cooper completely out of the game. Ramsey for sure saw that film and he wants to replicate that same sort of, performance. So Cooper has got to get going. This is one of the games he needs at least 10 receptions and over 100 yards. He's got to dominate.
Right.
I agree.
I think it's a growing theme right now for the Rams with their defense. Since they got Ramsey, other than that Ravens game where they got smacked, but the Ravens are smacking everybody. But other than that one game, that defense has looked really good in the past few weeks. So I think their identity is shifting. We're watching this team. I think now their identity may be their defense. They're going to have to lean on their defense for the rest of the year in order to make a push for the playoffs. With the pieces they have on defense, Aaron Donald, all their pass rushers, and now Jalen Ramsey on the back end, I think their defense has a chance to closing the season. I think they have a chance to play at a top 5 defensive level.
I agree, but I think I don't know what their schedule is. I mean, I know they play Dallas, but
I think they play San Francisco again. Yeah,
I think they might need to win out, like win all 3 games if they want to have a shot, because that Minnesota football team who's sitting in the 6th seed right now at 9-4. I don't know if they're going to be able to catch them if they stumble to the finish line. I think they could, because I think when you look at it, Todd Gurley, he hasn't been the same as he was a couple of years ago. Right. And I don't think he'll ever be. But he still has, some left in the tank, a lot left in the tank if you use him in the right way. And I think that bodes well for the Rams coming down the stretch, because as I mentioned earlier when we were talking about the Steelers and the other teams, you have to be able to run the football in January. The teams that do that usually end up in the Super Bowl. And that's why Baltimore, San Francisco, they have a committee of running backs that do it for them, but they're one of the best teams. I think New Orleans and Seattle are all the top Super Bowl contenders in my mind.
Yeah, the NFC is so tough. Even if they do win out, it's still an uphill battle.
So I'm going to put y'all on the spot. Who is the best team in the NFC? Is it San Francisco? Is it New Orleans? Is it Seattle? Is it Green Bay?
I would have to say, as of right now, it's San Francisco. Initially, I was going to say it was New Orleans, but then after last week and how we saw San Francisco take a sizable lead, squander it, and still find a way to win, you've got to go San Francisco. They're probably the most complete team in the NFC.
Yeah.
Because New Orleans, that's a very solid team, but then San Francisco, you see, defensively, there's no questions as to how good those guys are. Granted, you gave up 40 points last week, but that happens. All right, and then offensively, Jimmy G, he's proven to everybody, hey, I'm not just some product of, Belichick who can only play in this system. Last year when I was, 2 years ago when he started 6-0 or something like that, he proved that wasn't no fluke. And he's been playing very well thus far this year. And their running game is probably the most surprising because it's by committee too. You got a Breida who's playing very well, Mostert who's running very well, and then Tevin Coleman, although he may be out, I don't know if he's on IR or if he's ever going to come back. Whatever the case is, those guys, they've got a very solid football team. I'd have to say San Francisco is the best one in the NFC.
I have to agree with you. I think Garoppolo has been playing great. He's been fantastic.
Yeah.
It seemed like every time New Orleans scored a touchdown and took a lead, San Francisco had some type of answer. And that is, in all places to play in the NFL, the Superdome in New Orleans is one of the hardest, if not the hardest, places to play in the NFL. So very impressive performance by San Francisco. I think the key for them is their front four on defense. I mean, that's been the key for them all season. They get pressure, they just dominate up front, and they let the secondary, do its job. And I think Shanahan, he's a brilliant coach. I really like their running backs. I really love the addition of Emmanuel Sanders. Deebo Samuel has been fantastic.
Yeah, he's been great.
He's been great. And right now they're the best team. But if you think about it, I mean, San Francisco's 11-2, right? Seattle's 10-3. Do you think this could potentially come down to that Week 17 game in Seattle?
Absolutely.
It has to.
Yeah, I think it will.
Because if Seattle sweeps San Francisco and they end up with the same record, it's their division.
Yeah, and it could be their number one seed.
Right.
And they're playing each other in Week 17 as well. And I personally believe Seattle will beat San Francisco twice. Because I just feel as if Russell Wilson just knows how to play in those big-time games and get one over on that San Francisco defense. We saw him do it on Monday night, and I'm pretty sure he'll be able to do it in Week 17. But for Seattle, they've just got to make sure they can keep pace and stay within one game. Because they beat them the first time, so if they end with the same record like right now, they'd be ahead of them. And then ultimately knowing that you'll see them again, just win your next two games so that Week 17 will be a showdown for the division and most likely the number one seed.
Yeah, I think they're going to win their next two games. When you look at tomorrow, they play the Panthers, a team that's going like super downhill. They're in the trash can right now. Yeah. They don't have really a head coach. Rivera's been fired. McCaffrey hasn't been the same guy he was early on when they were, in the playoff race. And I just think after getting pretty much pushed around, dominated by LA last week on Sunday night, I think the Panthers are in big trouble. I think that game could be 3 touchdowns plus.
What's their game after?
Arizona at home.
Okay, yeah. So those are two
very winnable games.
Very winnable.
I think they're going to win both those games, and I think it's going to come down to that game in Seattle Week 17. And for the 49ers, they could look up, be 13-3, and have to go on the road for a wild card game.
Right. Another team no one's really talking about though is Green Bay. Aaron Rodgers is just over there chilling, He's just, if Aaron Rodgers goes into San Francisco in a playoff game, if he plays like we know he can play, they can honestly beat anyone in the NFC if Aaron Rodgers plays like a high-level game and just the defense can get 1 or 2 stops or here and there.
I like Green Bay, and we all know Aaron Rodgers can beat anyone on any given day, right? And that's what makes him dangerous. But to me, right now, I like Minnesota better as a football team. I think they have the better defense. I don't think that's a question, and I think Kirk Cousins has a different feel to him this year. They played in that game in Seattle a couple weeks ago. I think it was a Monday nighter. I think it was in Seattle, and Kirk Cousins played well in that game. They lost the game, but he played well. And Dalvin Cook's a difference maker. And if they get into a playoff game, they can give the ball to Cook. I believe they have Thielen back, which helps a lot. Diggs has been Stephon Diggs, and I like the Mike Zimmer coach defense. To me, we all know what Aaron Rodgers is capable of doing. We all seen what Aaron Jones can do. We all know what Devontae Adams and the crew can do. And I like Matt LaFleur. I think he's done a good job. But to me right now, I think Minnesota's the better team.
I'd agree. However, Minnesota's a very good football team at home.
Yeah.
From what we saw, because they're undefeated at home thus far this season.
Yeah.
But on the road, they're 3-4.
Yeah.
And if you look at their final, because they're going on the road to play against Los Angeles this week, and then they're closing out against Green Bay and then against Chicago. Chicago, which is desperate, and they need help in order to make it to the playoffs. Green Bay, that's going to be a showdown, which in my opinion will determine the division. Yeah. But from what I'm looking at right now, Minnesota, they have to make sure they don't lose at least 2 more games. Because to be quite honest with you, if they lose 2 of their final 3, they can mess around and not even make the postseason.
Yeah, right.
Because the Rams are waiting, and if they're sitting there waiting, you still, and Chicago, although they have to pretty much win out, if they do beat Minnesota in that last game, they'll usurp them and take that slot.
Yeah.
They've got Thielen coming back. Cook has always been playing well. Cousins, he's been balling thus far this season. But I'm concerned about them going on the road. If they do get into the postseason as a wild card, what are they going to do on the road?
Yeah.
Most likely they'll be the 6th seed because Seattle or San Francisco will probably they'll have 13 wins.
Yeah.
So they're going to most likely go and play either Green Bay or New Orleans at that number 3 seed. Now they're going into the Superdome or they're going to Lambeau Field. Who knows how that'll play out for them? So I think I like how Green Bay is playing. And I think I'll lean more towards Green Bay being the better football team because I really like what Aaron Jones has been doing on the ground thus far. That defense has since regressed through 6 weeks. They seem like they were one of the better defenses, in the league, and then they got, exposed for what they truly are. But, Aaron Rodgers, you can't bet against Aaron Rodgers, man. If he gets going, they can beat anybody.
Right. I'm looking at Minnesota's schedule. At the Chargers tomorrow, and then they have 2 home games. Green Bay at home next Monday night, so that'll be huge. And then they have the Bears coming to their place, another home game to finish out the season in Week 17. So ultimately, I think it's going to come down to next week on Monday Night Football. But they have to take care of business against the Chargers. I mean, you can't just go in there and mess around.
Right. Chargers are a good team.
That could really do them in.
That's a trap game.
Yeah,
that is the definition of a trap game.
Oh yeah. Because the Chargers, they're way better than what their record has shown.
Yeah.
All 8 of their losses are from 7 points or less. So it's not as if they're losing and getting blown out. This is a team that can easily be they can have 12 wins. They can easily have 10 wins rather than 5. They're way better than their record is. Their running game with Eckler and also Melvin Gordon, surprisingly throughout the season, has been good here and there. Rivers has been the only thing that has been consistently, I guess, bad because the turnovers have killed them.
Right.
But outside of that, if they just protect the football, they can win this game.
Yeah, I agree. And that's why Minnesota can't go in there and mess around. Because even if, you end up beating Green Bay, excuse me, and, you beat Chicago, that'd probably be enough to get them in. But if the Rams went out, I don't know how the tiebreakers exactly went out or, shake up between the 2 teams. But, that Chargers loss, if they lose, that could do them in.
Yeah.
They cannot go in and mess around with the Chargers team that's been competitive, as you mentioned. I mean, we'll see.
Yeah. Overall, I feel like most of the divisions are up for grabs still, which is really interesting because it seems like most years the cream of the crop in all the divisions will rise to the top. But it feels like most of the divisions in the NFC, there's always there's 2 or 3 teams fighting for position.
Even the AFC East, the division that's usually locked up by week 12, most seasons is still up for grabs. I mean, Buffalo is only a game back of New England, as crazy as it sounds. And if they win tomorrow, that game, I believe they play next week, and it's in New England, which is
next week,
which doesn't do Buffalo any favors, but you never know.
Yeah,
it's been crazy, and I think the only teams who have clinched divisions are Baltimore
and
New Orleans. Yep. Right.
Oh, and also Kansas City.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
I forgot about Kansas City.
Right.
You're right. So lots still up for grabs. That's 3 out of 8 divisions. So still 5 divisions up for grabs with 3 weeks to go in the season. And some of them might not be decided till, 7 o'clock, week 17.
Right. I think the AFC is so interesting because you got 3 teams that are looking to prove themselves, and then you have the Patriots, which in past weeks have kind of faltered a little bit, but they're still the Patriots. You know? Like you don't want to bet against them, but at the same time, you've got all these young quarterbacks rising up in their conference. That Watson, Mahomes, and Jackson, and it feels like if there was any year, this would be the year where the AFC shifts.
There's been a lot of talk about Brady, and he put his house on the market and all this stuff, and whether he's going to be back next year and all. I don't buy into all that stuff, but New England. I mean, we're looking at the difference between. I mean, I don't remember when was the last time New England played on Wild Card Weekend. I mean, I can't. I mean, can y'all?
2009.
2009, really?
Yeah, 2009
Lord.
when they lost to Baltimore.
Oh Lord,
Matt Castle.
Can you imagine?
Oh my goodness.
So,
I doubt that would happen.
I mean, personally, I don't want it to happen because Pittsburgh. Well, they're a totally different team than Week 1 when they got beat down 33-3. I think it was on the opening game. But I don't want my Steelers to have to go into New England for a 3-6 wild card matchup because it seems every time we get into those matchups, Belichick outcoaches Tomlin. But we saw last year, they lost to the Miami Miracle, both December games, 2 consecutive. They lost to Miami and Pittsburgh. And in that Pittsburgh game, they scored 10 points, but then they ended up, going on to figure it out and win the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So, they could be looking at
No, keep going.
They could be looking at a wild card game against a dangerous, a dangerous Pittsburgh or Tennessee team, or they could have the same, home game that they always have in the first round with the bye. So.
Yeah, that's why it all comes down to seeding. Because if you look at all 3 teams that are leading in their division, they all beat New England.
Yeah.
So from where it sits right now, if New England loses at least one more game, because they're sitting at 3 losses, well, 2 in a sense for Houston's sake, they can drop to the 4th seed. I think if they play against Pittsburgh, they'll feel much more comfortable because, as you said, Belichick always outcoaches Tomlin.
Yeah.
So that'll be something. And on top, since it's at home, it's in Foxborough. Pittsburgh has always struggled to beat, New England in New England. Had this been, the New England going on the road, then I'd probably, choose against them. But Tennessee walking into Foxborough, I don't feel bad that the Titans will be able to pull off that victory. And even, the Texans, I think they can walk in there too and walk away with a W. So for New England's sake, they've just got to hold on to that 3 seed and hope that they play against, a team like Pittsburgh.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I think, Pittsburgh going into New England could be trouble, especially because I don't remember the last time Pittsburgh beat New England in New England with Tom Brady playing quarterback. I'm not really sure it's ever happened.
I don't think it's ever happened either. The last time they went there, I think Matt Castle was starting in 2008.
Yeah, that was the year Brady was hurt for the year with the ACL or whatever. So, as Pittsburgh fans, I'm sure we hope, I guess, New England doesn't end up playing Pittsburgh in the wild card. I'd rather play a Houston or Kansas City just because I think we've seen Pittsburgh I think they're better matchups for those 2 teams, but we'll stop talking about the Steelers because
Well, speaking of Kansas City, do you guys think their defense has turned a corner a little bit?
No.
No?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I think that their defense will be the sole reason why they won't make it to the Super Bowl. I think they're the AFC version of the Packers. Because we've seen Aaron Rodgers put on virtuoso performance year after year after year, but that defense is abysmal. And last year, Kansas City's defense is the sole reason as to why they didn't get an opportunity to contend for the Lombardi in Super Bowl 53. So I think this Chiefs team will probably get to the divisional round because right now they're sitting at that 3 seed. And if they do have to play Pittsburgh and they're hosting Pittsburgh, because Pittsburgh defense is playing so well, and Kansas City offensive line, they're not playing bad, but they're not good enough to where you can't start to have a bit of cause to pause when they're going against, a pass rush like Pittsburgh. So from what I'm seeing, Kansas City, they need to play against a favorable matchup to where Mahomes can go out and throw for the 300 yards. Tyreek Hill can go and win his matchups. Williams and McCoy can run the football effectively and possess the ball long enough to where their defense doesn't, once again fail them.
Yeah.
So if they play against a team like the Texans, obviously if the Texans fall to the wild card, I think that's trouble for Kansas City. If they play against a team like the Titans, that's trouble for Kansas City.
Yeah.
I think in their case, they might want to see a team like Buffalo. That's their best opportunity. I think Kansas City can mess around and be a one-and-done situation.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
Ooh,
I think their worst nightmares, personally, is Tennessee. I think if you get into a game where Tennessee can,
keep Mahomes
off the field with Derrick Henry and win time of possession and let that defense do its thing, I think that's Kansas City's worst nightmare.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh, this is the most parody we've had in the NFL in a long time. This is so fun.
It's been fun. Do you have anything else? We've run through the NFC. We've run through most of the AFC. Is there anything else you want to get to NFL-wise?
I already went on my Cowboys rant.
All right, how about this?
Okay. Yeah.
What would be like your first of all, who do you think is going to be in the Super Bowl? Like the logical like prediction, and then secondly, who do you actually want to see in the Super Bowl? Like who would be like your dream matchup? You know what I mean?
I would have to say, logically, right now, you'd have to say San Francisco, Baltimore.
Yeah.
But for some apparent reason, I just don't feel as if Baltimore will make it because year after year, since probably 2009, the best team in the NFL doesn't win the Super Bowl.
Right. Yeah.
And the MVP of the league, at this point, it's a foregone conclusion. It's Lamar Jackson. The MVP hasn't won the Super Bowl since Kurt Warner in '99. So it's kind of what do you expect from each team to get there? I'd have to probably the team that I'd like to see in the Super Bowl in the NFC. I'd love to see either New Orleans or Green Bay.
Right.
In the AFC, I'd have to say Kansas City, Houston, or Pittsburgh for the story.
Yeah.
Even a Buffalo for just the story of it. But most likely, I'd have to say a Houston or Kansas City versus New Orleans or Green Bay. That would be the matchup that a lot of people would want to see.
Yeah. Personally, even though as a Cowboys fan, I hate Green Bay's guts, I would love to see a Aaron Rodgers versus Tom Brady matchup in the Super Bowl. That would be – obviously we never got to see a Brady versus Manning Super Bowl, but a Rodgers versus Brady, that would be very interesting.
Or Breeze Brady. Either one.
Yep.
Pick your poison. Or what about a Seattle-New England rematch? Ooh.
Oh, yeah. That'd be nice. That'd be awesome.
Yeah. I want to see that. You really can't go wrong. To be honest.
Yeah, you can't. I mean, you can never just count out the Patriots.
I think any Super Bowl matchup will be close, and at least it'll be exciting because this is, as you said, this is one of the years in which it's literally anybody's game.
Right.
You can think somebody's a runaway, candidate to go and win the Super Bowl, and then it's any given Sunday. So who knows what'll happen? Yeah. It's so exciting to be a football fan now.
Yeah. So, what do you want to? I mean, I was thinking we could talk a little college football playoff if y'all want to. If we're done with NFL stuff, or we can.
Yeah, we can close out with the college football playoff for sure. Okay. But right now I have a little spiel on the Sixers real quick.
Okay, so that's
okay. So I think Elton Brand is a horrible GM.
Okay.
Here's my take. All right. So he gets this team, and they have Simmons and Embiid, obviously, and they have Covington, Saric, and Fultz, obviously, with him being in his shoulder problems. And now with the team now, they have 5 players combining for $580 million over the next 4 years. Woo! So this team is like, this is what you got.
Yeah.
In Philadelphia. Like, this is like, they have no flexibility at all.
Yeah, that's a problem.
And we're sitting here talking about the fit doesn't work. The fit doesn't work. But they had Robert Covington. That guy, he fits on literally everybody in the league. He's part of
just
every team's ideal trade is for a role player like Robert Covington. They had shooting, and you can say what you want about whether this team right now is better than the team they had before, but I think the lack of flexibility now, I personally don't think this team can win a championship, and also the lack of flexibility now, they're stuck.
I think we talked about in our last episode how the Sixers are. We believe they're pretenders. I mean, I don't have anything to go off of. I'm just going off the top of my head, but I just think, I don't think it's ever going to really work out between Simmons and Embiid. I think Embiid, with all the health problems and, all the distractions, he tends to get a little distracted sometimes, just in my opinion. I just think, I think they're going to have to end up trading one of the two. I don't know which one it's going to be, but I just don't think it's ever going to work out.
Yeah, I'd agree. I feel like they definitely shot themselves in the foot, giving Tobias Harris that much money. Yeah. And then, as you said, Covington was a 3-and-D guy. That's what everybody wanted on their team. But if you look at the depth of that Philly team from 2 years ago, even when they had Redick there,
right,
and then Ilyasova,
right,
Sark, they had shooters everywhere. Now this is my starting 5. That is my team.
Right.
To hell with the bench. So if you can't get anything going with that starting 5, when you start rotating, guys are going to get tired. And you see teams like Miami who are ascending with a ton of young stars, so they can only get better from here. Boston, which is playing extremely well. You can never ignore Milwaukee. So how does Philly, and honestly, they've got maybe a 2-year window, in my opinion, because guys will either start to regress or, again, they'll have to make moves, but they won't have the money to do so. So they've got 2 years. They've got 2 years to try to make an impact and come out of the East. Yeah. Coming into this season, a lot of people said that they probably would contend because they were the far and away best team on paper. But now that you see the product on the court, who's to say if they can even make it out of the semifinal?
Think about it. I mean, Tobias Harris, I really like Tobias Harris. He's a really good basketball player. But think about this. Jimmy Butler, they chose Tobias Harris over Jimmy Butler. And now you look at what Butler's doing in Miami. I think they're second in the East, in the Eastern Conference right now.
Well, actually, they were thinking about playing like paying both of them.
Yeah,
but Jimmy Butler decided.
They ultimately decided.
Yeah,
he wanted to go to Miami, and now look at it. Butler's doing some pretty darn good things in Miami, and I mean,
trading away all those key pieces to their young roster for a guy that you only had for 6 months.
Yeah.
So that was my little spiel on the NBA. We'll talk college football. We'll finish up with our college football predictions.
So we'll start in the first college football playoff matchup. LSU. Joe Burrow won the Heisman, by the way, tonight. So we have LSU and OU. So we'll start with who wants to go first.
You can start.
Well, I'd have to say you can't count out LSU. They've been playing absolutely bonkers the entire season. I am curious for how OU will play. Jalen Hurts has been playing. Midway through the season, a lot of people thought, hey, maybe he'll have the Heisman, but I don't know. That defense of LSU is suffocating. They can play very good. I think they'll be able to go away with the W. I am curious to see how CD Lamb, pardon me. I think how he'll play. But ultimately, I think LSU walks away with this W.
Yeah, I think this game will be running. It'll be won in the trenches, O-line, D-line, and I think ultimately LSU. They have a new identity on offense this year with their spread offense, but they can still pound you, And I just think on the ground will be their running game will be the key to this game. I think they'll win. Might be pretty high scoring. I'm thinking.
Yeah. I don't think anyone's going to stop anyone in this game. I think it's going to be high scoring. Even you look at LSU's defense, they gave up like 37 points to Ole Miss at home, but they scored, 55, so it ultimately didn't matter. But, I think Joe Burrow, he's just been too good. This is an offense we've never seen at LSU, or at least in recent memory. Yeah. It's always been downhill, run the football.
Leonard Fournette.
Yeah, Leonard Fournette type running backs. Run the football, control time of possession, and win the game with your defense. But this year, it's air it out, Joe Burrow, dynamic receivers, dynamic offensive scheme, score a lot of points, get, I guess, stops when you absolutely have to. I think it'll be high scoring. I don't know what the over-under is. I wish I knew it. I think it's probably going to be somewhere I honestly don't know.
Yeah, I think.
I think the line's 13.5 as of right now. We still have 2 weeks until the game's played, so that obviously could fluctuate.
Right.
But I think LSU is going to win ultimately. I think it'll be close. OU will keep it close, but ultimately, third quarter, somewhere in there, LSU will end up pulling away.
Yeah, I think this game will probably be a lot like the game between OU and Alabama last year with Kyler Murray. Yeah. OU kind of came out slow, got punched in the mouth a little bit by a little bit more athletic Alabama team. I think it'll be pretty similar, to be honest. I think it might get a little out of hand in the first half, and then OU might come back and then fall short in the end.
And you look at LSU, in the SEC championship, they manhandled a really good Georgia football team. It wasn't even close.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I just think LSU is too good. But they have to play the winner of Clemson and Ohio State. So let's talk about that matchup. What do you think?
I think this is clearly the marquee game out of the two.
Yeah.
Clemson is a wild card. They've played literally nobody the whole year. So we don't know how good they are, is the thing. They haven't been challenged. They could easily walk in there and give Ohio State fit. They have the athletes to do it, but we don't know how they'll respond to to pressure. Frankly, I mean,
I think a lot of people have been saying that, but I just think, you're only adding fuel to the fire, telling Clemson they're not good enough, telling Dabo Sweeney, y'all don't deserve to be here, y'all haven't played anybody.
I'm not saying there are no.
Well, you get the point. I think I'm picking Clemson. I just think it's going to be really close. It's kind of flip a coin type game, pick your poison. I think obviously when I watch Ohio State, both teams have fantastic tailbacks. I mean, Travis Etienne and J.K. Dobbins, they're both like out of this world fantastic, and both have fantastic weapons. I just think Clemson, when it comes down to it, I trust. They've been here before. I mean, obviously Ohio State's been here. They
definitely have the experience back.
But they have the experience. I think this is where we see, okay, Lawrence. We already know Lawrence is really good, but is he like really, really, really good? Like, this is where we find out.
Right.
I just think he's going to prove to be too much. I think it's going to be LSU Clemson.
I think I'd have to go Ohio State here. Initially, I was probably going to lean, towards Clemson, but then again, who have they played? They almost lost to a UNC team in September. And although it's a completely later, it is going to take place about 3 months later. But, Ohio State, there's just something about Dobbins in that run game. I can't pick against them. I feel as if they'll just make the big plays. They've had the big moments this year. They've played the big games. And although Clemson is battle-tested and they've been here before, they've won 2 of the last 3, it's just something about Ohio State that I can't choose against them right now. I think they'll get out there. I think it won't be as high scoring as OU and LSU, but I do think Ohio State and Clemson, this game will be a phenomenal, probably game of the year caliber, and I'm going to lean with Ohio State to win this game.
Yeah, I mean, it's honestly, like I said, it's a flip of a coin.
Yeah, I'm going to lean Ohio State also. It's really tough, but with Clemson losing all of those D linemen in the draft to the NFL draft, they had 4 D linemen go in the first round. I mean, that's unheard of. I think with Ohio State having Chase Young and having that dominant offensive line, I feel like they'll be able to get Dobbins going and control the clock and get Lawrence off the field. So I think ultimately they'll come out with a W.
Okay. I'm going Clemson, but
it
can go either way.
Yeah, it's flip a coin.
Flip a coin.
So y'all have LSU and Ohio State. I mean, can you forecast that at all?
Oh, man. Wow. Oh, that's a game. That is a game. Boy.
Ultimately, I take LSU over Clemson in my matchup. But y'all hit it.
I mean,
I just think LSU's been too good all year.
Yeah, I think LSU would be the front runner, but the storyline of that game, it would be Joe Burrow going against the team he transferred from.
3 Heisman candidates in that game alone. Think about it.
Chase Young,
Justin Fields, and Joe Burrow.
Oh,
that's the marquee matchup that most people would want to see. That's a tough one to call. That's the ultimate flip of the coin. Who would win between LSU and Ohio State? Because if it's indeed LSU and Clemson, I would lean towards LSU in that game too. But now, if it's Ohio State, LSU, it can go either way. I would probably go more towards LSU because it's been storybook all season, and it seems as if they were destined for this moment. So probably, I think I'd have to give LSU the slight edge over Ohio State.
My gut is telling me to go with LSU. I think that game might go to overtime. Like that's how close it might be. Yeah, I'll go with LSU. It just seems like the level that Joe Burrow is playing at. It doesn't feel like he's going to be stopped, and against any team in the country, really. I mean, he's been flawless all year, pretty much. I mean, there's not a lot you can say that will make you confident that Ohio State will be able to slow down that offense.
Yeah. I heard a rumor, I think Chase Young might be coming back to Ohio State next year, which kind of surprises me. But considering he's draft eligible and would be a top 3 pick, as of right
Potentially
now,
number 1 pick.
potential even number 1 pick. But you know, it might be the same team next year because Fields is going to be back. You know, the receiving core is young. I don't know what your Dobbins is, but they always seem to have the recruiting. I think Ryan Day's a fantastic coach. Luckily, Meyer got out of there, or else I think they probably would have lost Ryan Day to another school.
I think maybe
And ultimately
Ohio
might not be
State.
in this division.
Yeah, I think with you saying all that, I think Ohio State may be 1 year away. Fields is a freshman, if I'm not mistaken. Is he?
Well, I think he's either a red. I think he's a sophomore.
Okay.
If I'm being honest, but I don't know that for sure. But either way, if Young comes back, that's like the best defensive player in the country. And then Fields comes back, who I think finished 4th in Heisman voting because it was Joe Burrow ran away with it. Surprisingly, Jalen Hurts finished 2nd, and then it was Young and then Fields in the Heisman voting. And then I think Jonathan Taylor, the running back for Wisconsin, was 5th, but that doesn't matter. I think next year I think they could come into the season as favorites. Both those guys come back, but that's beside the point. I just wanted to mention that because I heard that and I was really surprised. But
I think this is a really good spot to wrap it up. Once again, man, thank you so much for coming on our podcast. We're sitting here with 20 subscribers filming on our laptop. I mean, it means a lot for you to come on our podcast, man. I can't say it enough.
Hey, it's my pleasure. I know what it was like when I first started, and then you can reach out to different sort of people. Other people give you the cold shoulder, but I love it. Any opportunity to just talk sports with anybody who's just passionate about sports. I love the conversation. I love the picking of the minds, and I love me some football.
Yeah.
So any opportunity I get to just talk football with anybody, it's not we're talking football. Let's go and do it. So it's my pleasure, man. I had a ton of fun. This was great.
Yeah,
awesome.
Thank you so much again. Hopefully our Steelers can win tomorrow. I think they will ultimately. I mean, we talked about it for a good amount of time. Yeah. But keep doing those commentary videos. We love it. They're hilarious. Keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah. All right.
Sure. I appreciate all your support, man. It means a lot.
All right, that's going to do it. I think this has been our best podcast yet. Peace out.
All right, later.